Welcome back to Sista Talk. Thank you for staying tuned and staying on with us, even as we discuss parenting in a modern world. When we went for a break, we had just discussed cultivating and training a child to be self-disciplined, and we also talked about the effects or the positives of and the negatives of social media. In this next session, I'd like us to look at something that is also rampant among our young generation. And if parents do not look into this, it is going to affect the growth and, the development, the future of our children. And Dr. Ogwenu, in the recent weeks, I think last week, we heard in the news of young children or teenagers running away from home. They go and, lock themselves in a house, and they are actually, having sex, participating in stripping, and drug abuse. And then over the previously also there was talk of introducing sex education and teaching sex. But I'm wondering, who should teach this to our children?
Who should teach?
Yes.
That's a question that we've really been
And
thinking
where
about.
is the gap such that our children at such a young age are now having sex at 15 to 17?
Okay. I always ask this question, not asking to you, but generally, who is teaching our parents? Because you teach, you give what you have. So where are our parents getting the information that they are going to teach the children in the home? There's this thing normally called we refer to as in our days. In our days, we were taught covertly and overtly. We were taught an auntie would come, and sexual education would take place in a very interesting way. Kaa vizuri, And somehow you just got this kaa vizuri means I'm indecent. But currently with the houses close to everybody, and now worst of all with COVID coming in, my question is, where are parents getting the information that they're teaching their children? You must have some information to teach the children. Now, there was this debate that teachers should do it. By virtue of teachers being in school, there is no way any normal teacher who is a parent may not pass in a word here or there. But currently I'm aware that KICD is doing a curriculum. Maybe it will start with the grade level, but they're doing something that is safe for the Kenyan children. Because truth be told, you mentioned the comprehensive sex education that was supposed to be taught. I had a chance to look at that manual. And in all honesty, that manual will not suit our children at all. The things that they are being told on discovering their bodies, in my opinion, will lead to exploring their body and making them go to the other extent of now misusing their bodies. Because sex is something sacred. It's God himself who initiated it. The entire human race, except for the Lord Jesus Christ, came from that avenue. So it's not something to be joked with, but the enemy is capturing it. And because there were avenues that were opened, and like she said ably, that when schools were on as normal, there was a lot that was hidden under the carpet. The moment the schools now went on recess and we have to parent, we realized most of us did not even have the information of how to introduce those small things. So in short, sex education should be taught by the parent, who should get the information from a good source because they are now more mature, and there's so many organizations who are helping, who are safe, and I believe this is a Christian station that is here to help guide on how far we can go. Because on the internet, there's so much that we can learn, but some of it is very, very dangerous, even to the parents themselves. So let us teach, and it must start from the time the child is young.
You say something interesting, that what is in the internet can also be dangerous for
adults. Oh, yes.
So then you're saying that teaching a child about sex should be deliberate. You should have research, sat down, gone through it yourself, then you call the children to teach them.
Yeah,
and maybe before you answer that, at what age should a parent, start introducing or speaking on the topic of sex?
Being people who are exposed to developmental, human development, this will surprise you. You should begin even under 1 year. Because at every stage, a child expresses sexuality differently that might affect how they do it in the future. And that has everything to do with even how they're being breastfed. by a mother, because at that time they have the highest bond that any human being can have with another. And when they are being bathed, whoever is washing that child, how they treat that child at the birth tub will have a consequence in how this child treats their bodies in the future. What we say to a child at whatever age that they are able to listen will have a consequence on their sexuality. And then it will also create the ability for that caregiver then to be able to talk about now the overt issues of sexuality when they are able and they begin to notice the differences in them and the biological organs. It's quite important. There was an attempt, Judy, I don't know whether you remember, there was an attempt to teach, and I was one of the pioneer teachers of social education and ethics. And the things that we are doing this without much skill and training, and I thank God. I hope my students whom I taught sex education
Are not traumatized.
are not here. They were not traumatized, but there was a lot of joking around it, and the teachers who were given that duty and responsibility did some things that only God had saved us at that particular time, because the kind of things we used to do was basically name the parts, draw the parts, and those are assignments and stuff like that, until it was then removed out of the system. Then came again the HIV and AIDS education. It also brought in the sexuality. Now, in my view, I think this aspect, because the social media and the digital platform has opened the can of worms. So we no longer have anyone, most of the young people and people, anyone who is able to interact with the social media is able to understand, and they know much more than we can think. So basically, I think the task that is remaining for most of us as caregiver is to kind of regulate and affirm the information that is appropriate and try to compete with the information that is not appropriate. And I use that word with all confidence, compete with the information that is not
Because the
appropriate.
information is out there.
Because the information is already out. It's out for 3-year-olds, it's out for 4-year-olds. And I recently had a very young child who came face to face for the first time with some pornographic material on the phone. And the mother says they actually went to their elder sister. And the elder sister actually warned them, and the warning was, don't ever let mom know that was on my phone. So what is this child going to handle them? But tell me what it is. Don't ever let mom know. So this child grew up with this thing. Mom should never
know.
ever know, but my sister and myself, it is okay.
So then it means even if the older sister had been taught about it, she would have
by
found
the digital.
If she had been taught by the parent. Remember, here we are discussing parenting. Because here is an elder sister who is warning the younger one not to talk about it to the parent. It means there is a gap. The parent never talked to this older one concerning sex.
That's right.
So the information they know is bad. And we come from a generation, Dr. Ogwen, where we were told sex is bad. And that was the end of it.
Yes.
So where should a parent who is coming from that background begin teaching a child concerning such issues?
Here is my take, and I thank God for the quarantine period, however, though we're not so much quarantine. It set me reflecting some of the things I've captured in writing. Foundations. Do you know, even as we are talking about sex education, parents out there, we being one of them, we are not on the same page. There are certain things that are right in this culture or in this context, and allow us to always talk up in our times, because like she said, we cannot do away with our times. There are things that were good about our times. Then we had something that was known as a foundation based on the African culture. Then we had the Christian culture. We had for the other people different. So there was a foundation. Foundation determines the weight of a building and how far it will stand. If a home has no foundation on which to base itself on, how do you start correcting the child based on? Because it is my conviction as a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ that governs how I parent. Now, does it mean that the parents who are not Christians will not have ways? No, psychologists and people have done research that will work for anybody who is willing to search what is there for them to do. But I will still insist on we parents checking the foundations of our homes. That will govern where values will come from. That value will now peg or will now help me place sex in the home. Because for me, I think sex is a topic that is easy to talk about and hard to talk about in terms of the first times, especially for new parents, or even for older parents maybe, it's a bit difficult. But an innocent child, you're watching TV in between an advert comes, and the child asks you, Mom, she's walking naked. As a parent, how you behave? Because in my opinion, that's the first part to put in a lesson. Talk about something that is related to that, but it has come from the child noticing. But when you throw it under the carpet, the way they used to do, switch off, change the channel like the newspaper. The problem with pornography, it stays in the mind. And I remember being in a meeting where we were being told, anything that pops, whether for an adult or a child, if something pops on my computer like a pornographic, the best thing is to tell the person next to me. Because the Bible says stolen waters are sweet. When you hide it, it imprints. But when I share with you and then you'll say something, then I'd be like, oh, okay. And by the way, that's why ladies talk a lot with each other. Because the moment you get something out of your heart, it stops being a mystery. So even the issue of sex, you demystify it from the time, like she said, the child is young. They'll reach a time when the child herself now starts telling that this one I can talk to mom because of respect, this one I cannot. And then they'll ask you questions, which at first being African, you will blush. If you're my complexion, you turn purple. But with the time, you realize, or green. But let me tell you, talking helps. There is nothing new. And again, I keep saying, in my opinion, and opinion of many people who are teaching us, that the most or the way out, parents, let's talk. And if you do not know how to, there are key people you can talk to. And we ask churches to set up those counseling institutions that can guide. Because again, I go back to the question, who is teaching the parent?
So if you're joining us, you're watching Sista Talk, and you're discussing parenting in a modern world, there are SMS lines going below your screen. Please feel free to interact with us. And if you're a parent who is in a dilemma, you can, just let us know, and we'll see how we can work with you. So still on the issue of sex, one thing Dr. Ogweno has mentioned is parents need to come off not looking like they are running away from the issue, because we said these things are being given to our children, whether we like it or not, and they are going to come whether from you or from the boy next door or on social media. So it's going to come to the children either way. The recent study showed that 26% of students between the age of 15 to 17 had already had sex. 42% are boys and 15% are girls. So the issue of exploring sex is already there, whether the parent is aware or not. So still on the issue of a parent dealing with the issue of sex, especially now looking at a teenager, because teenagers like exploring and they're going to explore it. From our background, we were told sex is bad, and it was
you were supervised. You were supervised.
You were supervised.
You were supervised. You were supervised, literally. And the words that were used concerning that activity, like she's saying, it was so real in your mind that even when you are at the right age of engaging in it, you still had to think properly whether now it has turned to be kazi ya sio ya shetani. You understand? Dhambi. In fact, it was called kufanya dhambi. doing sin, literally. So it's part of the challenge that some of us grew up with. But then as we speak now, just the reality of sexuality and sexual intimacy has been so overrated. Everything, and I really don't know, because everything that is being presented, even as sweet, there's a sexual message, connotation
yes.
behind it. Good things are being partnered with sex. So, and that's the reason why I was saying it has to begin pretty early, so that when anyone touches this child at that age, that however tender it is, then they know what that touch means. They know what that talk means. They know what an adult is to do. They know when they are being washed, how they are supposed to be washed. And it's a very serious issue, because I think even those statistics, they are much lower. I, being in the counseling world for this time, I've been called to certain spaces, institutions, education, and social spaces, where suddenly one child who has moved into that institution, or has even moved into a church in a Sunday school, or moved into that estate, who has been taught, realized that something is not okay, and alerted their parents. And so when we go there, we find that about the entire class, except this one, who came in and is new, have been involved. And it is surprising to know that I'm not talking about Form 1. I'm talking about Class 2, Class 3, Class 5. Talking about a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. I'm talking about a brother and a sister. And this is what is happening right now. So we have a responsibility, any caregiver, and in my view and in my opinion, the church needs to escalate. And I really appreciate the kind of programs like even this one that we're doing. And I had to put so many things aside to be able to come and be a part of this, because the church is remaining as the best caregiver if they were to use the platform of the church of every week and giving out skills and training and information, because that is the work that can be done now. Because we are having parents who are disadvantaged as we speak now. It's not within their means, and like Dr. said, they don't have the skills, they don't have the capacity. They are so vulnerable in their background. Some of them are going through trauma. They have been abandoned by the fathers or mothers of these children. Last week I was talking to a man who has been left with all the children, and then the wife has gone. So we are having parents who are really at a very challenging position. They must look for food, and so there must be another caregiver stepping in to support. And I'm even talking to the young people who are around, that it is time now to also even push some of the institutions that you are, giving them questions and asking them to put up certain programs as you see. And just lastly, because there was some time back, I was handling a young girl. And you know now for them support, peer support is extremely important for them to change a behavior. And so I asked her, is it possible for me, because I like introducing another friend, a trusted friend or two, so that we partner, we say this is what we want to do together for Judy, so that Judy would be able to go over this. And it had everything to do with her getting into addiction. And she told me, Lois, all of us are in this. So I have to quickly turn into the mentor and bring in two. So by the time we work with two, then these two, we will push them, periodically into the team. And these are all members of one church living in one estate.
So parents, you need to know, or any guardian, caregiver, you need to know that the issue of sex and sex education will first start with you. Start training your child from a very young age, from when they are birthing, from when they are, suckling, to as they grow. Let them learn sex from you, because the world is going to teach them. And if the world teach them, that child is going to get lost. So let's carry this burden. Let's work with our children. There's information, there are mentorships that are happening for parents. If you need mentorship, you can contact us and we will refer you to the places that you can get such help. So if you're watching us, we are still discussing parenting in a modern world with our panelists today. And I'd like us to move to the issue of, homosexuality once again, because most of these young children are starting this issue, as in the process of experimenting, sex, being exposed to these issues on the internet. They start masturbation at a very young age. So when they go to boarding school and there's no one to, give them pleasure, they will pleasure themselves, both between girls and boys and girls and all that. So if we look at this issue, Dr. Ogweno, we said last time that it's an agenda that is being pushed from the outside world. But if we look at this parent who may not be aware, what are some of the behavioral changes that a parent can observe and know, oh, there's something missing with my child?
My experience tells me that there are very many things that you can note. And part of it would be, there's the children we are talking about, most of them are from puberty as we are going up. And one of the marks of puberty and teenage when it's starting is that children decide to become a bit more independent. So we should not confuse that kind of independence to this one where a child all of a sudden withdraws from every activity that was being done with the family, and a parent can only note that if they've been working with this child, because some may not even note when anything happened. The other thing I've noted, because the homosexuality and lesbian issue, it's attached to very many things. It's not necessarily about sex per se. We've handled children who are there because they were being recruited into a cult, so it came via the cult. Yeah. Others, it came in because the feel-good thing we're talking about, they've now reached high school and or secondary school, and all of a sudden they still want to feel that good thing. They're in a new space. Nobody's accepting them except this lonely girl who is identifying with her. And the moment they start touching the body, if you read the book of Songs of Songs, you will realize that this body is a powerful house of feelings. So if it is touched in all the wrong place, in the right places at the wrong time, it will just emit the same thing that is supposed to happen in the right context. So these children get lonely, they start hanging alone. And one of the dangerous trends that we are seeing is even at home, the child does not leave the house. They are in their bedroom with the gadget we're talking about. And they are doing everything on phone. The other person is guiding them what to do on this other side. So I'm saying when you notice that withdrawing from the normal life, moodiness is part of teenage for most of them, but there's one which you will notice where defiance and rebellion is also coming in, because for me, I know the Bible is clear. There's a spiritual aspect to all these things. There's a push towards it. So you will note that, but the tragedy is that it can happen right inside your house, and you have totally no idea. What do I advise? Remember, we went to the children's rights. You have a right to check what's going on in that room. That is your house.
You are the one
you don't
paying
have
rent.
To fight, but let the children know early enough that you know what, this is our house, but I have the authority over this house. You will be so shocked to find what they have, the kind of clothes they have. One time we had a child who was involved in those kind of things, and even worse, and all her dressing gave indications. And when we called the brother, because she felt sick, the brother came, everything was indicating something is wrong. And we told the parent, and he was like, no, that cannot be happening in my house. We are Christians. I am actually a very senior person in church. When we revealed the details of what this child had gone through, I remember him crying, and we told him, these are the tips. Go home, do 1, 2, 3, and there. When he went, he did the opposite. You call them together, and then you ask, Are you doing 1, 2, 3, 4? And then he later came and told us, I asked my children and they told me. We were like, oh God, we are not your enemies.
Yeah.
We are trying to help. So there are many, many signs that you can see. Eating disorders that all of a sudden come in. A child is either eating too much. In fact, I was so shocked to discover that obesity is one of the after effects of this kind of behavior. So I think I would probably say those ones. But when there's a change, a sudden change in the child's behavior, whether you understand that it's normal or not, whether it's a sickness or not, sleeping too much, please bring it to somebody's attention. If the parent is not able to handle, there are counselors that can help them handle it, or a trusted source. And then the worst part is that it's happening, like she said, on the border of incest. Brothers and sisters introducing each other because some of them are being threatened. There's a case that came quite a while ago where the parents used to lock the children in the house because it was secure, here in Nairobi too. And the friends to this boy, because boys are allowed to go out a lot, introduced him into the same homosexual behavior. And they told him, now you're proud here and your sister has never experienced anything. They went, the child never left, the girl never left. But the tragedy is the parents discovered that this child was changing, her shape was changing, she was expecting. Then she was HIV infected, but she never left the house. Unfortunately, those were the early days. So their health was deteriorating. I never followed to find out whether they are still there or not. But answering in many words, any change you notice.
Wow. So if you notice any change in your child's behavior, the way they are eating, how they are locking themselves in the room,
Dressing,
withdrawal,
clothes,
dressing, and you feel there's something wrong, always reach out to someone who can help.
In fact, I'm sorry, you need to move
Unfortunately,
on.
we have to close the show.
On dressing.
Time is,
Oh.
time is always not on
Oh,
our
no.
side. So we need to close. Maybe you can mention whatever you wanted to mention as you close.
Oh, I wanted to say that not every girl who dresses like a boy has any motives. But honestly, when you notice your girl who was a girl starting to dress in ways that are a bit strange, just check out. It may not be anything much, but check out.
Close.
What am I saying? Parents, we have work to do. We have a lot of work to do, but the goodness is we have a base from which we are coming. We have a God who is willing to help us parent. Let us submit to God. Let us get nuggets from this word of God that we use every day. You'll always find something that will guide you in that word towards towards bringing up your family. Romans chapter 1, I think the whole of Romans chapter 1 is very helpful in handling these issues of homosexuality, the cause and what God thinks about it. Let us try and find out what God says. And more than anything else, I'm glad for such programs. They're opening up the
conversation.
The conversation,
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Reverend Lois, please, 30 seconds.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
think for me, the beauty of parenting and the confidence I have is that there is the Creator who watches every child and every child who is in my care and space. And there's need for us to go before this God so that we can ask for wisdom and understanding, because no one can pray for your children like you do.
So, wow, parents, there's always help, not only here on earth, but also from heaven. You are not alone. Seek help, seek the Lord. Find rest in knowing that the Lord declared that your children, the children of the righteous, are a godly seed. So we thank you for watching this show today. Just to bring to your attention that Dr. Ogweno has written 2 books. One of them is called Pillar Daughters, and the other one is Study Oak's Son. You can get them at Elevation Bookshop anytime, any day. I've been your host, Linda Talam. Thank you so much for watching us today.